welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do another review on a book I just finished. It's actually a book that Crafted Girl Vlogs, she recommended, and it's The Prize, Julie Garwood, and I got it from the library and I read it. Guys, Crafted Girl, of course, again, did not lead us astray. So here it is, The Prize from Julie Garwood, and she gave a review, so if you want to watch her review is great. I loved it. And of course mine will be a little bit different, but it'll be about what it's about also. So it's about this woman, and this young woman, and she's the mistress of this keep, and it's Norway is battling England, and they're trying to take it over, and they're winning, and they're trying to take over her keep, and the king has to send like people like 3 different times, and all 3 of them fail, to try to take her to the king, because he wants to marry her off to like have his knights and stuff battle for her, and then all her property and stuff will come with the marriage. And basically, so she's like the prize to win. And since all 3 failed to get her to bring her to the king so he could do this, he sent his best man, Baron Royce, and he's like the most elite soldier. He's the best at training the most elite soldiers, and he's sent there, and he captures the keep, and when he does, she tricks him so he thinks that she's her twin sister that's a nun, and not the mistress of the keep. And then later on he finds out that she tricked him, but she got away to the abbey, and he couldn't just force her away from there. She has sanctuary, and so he went after her and talked to her. His friend was hurt, and so he was there with his friend who was getting nursed by the nuns, and she was there with her younger brother that had gotten hurt. His hand had gotten chopped off, and she was playing like chess with his friend, and they got talking, get to know each other. But then he basically said, like, you will leave this keep of your own free will. And she's like at the abbey, and she's like, no, I won't. And you're nuts. And so him and his friend left, and then he went back and got her nephew of her oldest brothers. Her oldest brother, there's her older brother Thurston, her, and then her younger brother Justin. But so he got her nephew, his name was Ulrich, and brought him, and she didn't know he had him until he held him up, and then she was like, and then she ran out, not worrying about covering herself even though it was cold, and she started shivering, but basically he like picked her up, put her on his saddle, and then handed her the baby, and then they headed and got belongings and stuff, and then headed to the king. So he did capture her. She did come out of her own free will, but she was furious when she did. Anyway, so then the whole way back to the keep, they are like, she keeps trying to escape, he keeps capturing her, and he keeps basically telling her like, checkmate, I've got you. Like, he keeps doing that the whole time, and it keeps infuriating her, but she realizes how kind and patient he really is with her and Ulrich the whole time. He's never like yelled at her, raised a voice, he's never been rough with her. So basically she's like kind of really getting to like him, and they get there, and then everyone is just floored by her beauty, which Royce was too when he first saw her. Like, she apparently is really gorgeous, beautiful blue eyes, blonde hair, that's like kind of like stark white, and he's not known as a handsome guy, but she thinks he's really handsome. He's got like a scar that a lot of women are repulsed by, but she sees the silver flecks in his eyes and sees how big and strong he is and dark and handsome, and so she's like really into him. And when she gets there, like, the king queen really like her. And she even saved like the queen's niece. That fire got caught on her dress, and she put him out and got burned really bad on her hands and arms. And then so then basically when her and Royce are trying to help Nicola with her burns, that's when the queen realizes that she will choose Royce if given the opportunity. And so she whispered to the king, and then he announced, change of plans. Instead of all of you fighting to win her, she's going to choose who she wants. And then this other baron, his name is Guy, he guesses really handsome, and he thinks that she's going to choose him, but she ends up walking straight up to Royce and says, checkmate. So basically she chooses him. Okay, and then Baron Guy, that Baron, he got upset about this, and he basically said, like, after they got married, during their wedding feast, that if he had been the one allowed to fetch her, that she would have chosen him instead of Royce. And she basically stood up to him and said, no, kind of a thing. This is what it says. It says, King William laughed. There you are, Guy, he announced. You have your answer. She would have chosen Royce, even if you'd gone to fetch her. Nicola nodded. She smiled at Morgan, then at Henry, which are his two, henchmen. She agreed. I wanted the best. It took a supreme act of concentration for Guy to smile back. I've been properly answered. Guy, really angry, made his two vassals very angry. But basically she's like, I would have chosen him anyway because he's the best, and I know he's the best, and he's the one I would have chosen because I deserve the best. And then while they were there was this lady that came in and told her basically, you have to kill him in his sleep. If not, then you're gonna be killed by the resistors. And she ended up telling Guy this, and he was furious, and he told the king, and the king was mad, feeling like his keep was breached. So they kept this secret, and he took her and left, but he kept her safe and nothing happened. And they found the old lady that told her her throat had been slit, and they didn't find out who did it yet. And then he took her back to their keep, and they fought a lot, all the time. But he kept telling her, lecturing, this is how I want you to be, this is my place now. And finally, when she told him, the truth that she found out, because on the way there, they were attacked by rebels, and she thought it was her brother, Thurston, that she thought was dead, her older one, and she jumped in front of Royce to protect him, and Royce just, got so upset, because he was crazy about her. And when Thurston saw her hair, he's like, oh no, it's my sister, and he's worried about hurting her. And then later on, after he took her to the keep and she was recovered and fine, eventually she told Royce, but she tried to make him drunk to tell him the truth, but so he wouldn't remember. Instead, she ended up being the one that got drunk and ended up telling him everything, and he was mad that she was trying to manipulate him, but then she admitted it, and she said she was sorry about that, and that she was going to be honest with him because she wanted their marriage to work. And he believed her, and so then things started getting better. But then her brother Thurston snuck in the keep and talked to her and found out that she was married to Royce of her own choice and that she loved him, and he got infuriated and he smacked her, and she cried out because of that. And then Royce heard, and he went and he barged in, and he was trying to talk to Thurston. He had her removed, and he found out that Thurston didn't know of any resistors that had been in the King William's castle, which that was huge to find that out. And then he basically let him leave, and blocked the passage he used to come in, but he had talked him into leaving his son Ulrich, and was like, you have his wife's family come get him, and I'll release him, because he didn't want them to have him, because he was upset that he was a Norman, and not British, English, whatever. And so he felt like his sister betrayed him. And it came out later that he had left his younger brother to die when he had found out his hand had been chopped off. And then they kept fighting, and but then she decided, you know what, I want to have a good marriage with you. So after Thurston's wife's family came to get Ulrich and left, she was upset, but then she started trying to be the perfect wife for him. And she had been saying things like, we should kiss so the baby has a good home and knows we love each other. And she would say little things like that, basically saying, I want you to kiss me every morning. And he was just like, oh yeah, sure, we should do it for the baby. Yeah, right. And he saw how upset she was, and like he had one rule for her, never to cry. But then that night he told her, like, you can cry, go ahead. But she was trying to explain to him, like, you know, when you get so mad, you need to punch someone. He's like, yeah, then I punch someone. She's like, well, it's kind of like that with women when we need to cry. Like, cry, we feel better. It doesn't always mean, like, you know, sometimes we just need to go cry, or sometimes we're happier. But he just couldn't understand that. Later on, he comes to understand that. And later on, he finds out he's, like, really upset by all the changes she's made to make him happy, because it's not her anymore. And he's like, I love you, and I want you to be you. So even if we're fighting, and there's some spontaneity, and you cry, and like all these other kind of things, like, I'm okay with that, basically. And he also helped her younger brother, Justin. He was so depressed after losing his hand, but he helped him, like, recover and fight. And he became, like, one of the best fighters. And they went back for a celebration. Right before they went, they found out from one of the Baron guys, men, that he was mad at Nicola, and was telling her that basically, like, you should have killed him, like that old lady told you, kind of a thing. When she told Royce that, he was like, oh. So see, it wasn't like the resistors, it was Barons. And so he told the king. The king was really mad. Like, after this whole competition, Royce won the competition. Then he told the king, and the king was furious with Baron. And I guess Baron basically gave the opinion that he didn't have anything to do with it, but because it was his men, he was responsible. So then he basically dishonored his men in front of everybody, and they were being sentenced to death, taken. They were going to be put to death. And then he and Royce started fighting for honor. And she was upset by this, but then she saw that his two men had, like, knocked out the other guys, or worse, to the other guys who were taking them. And then she saw they were coming towards them. And the one that was trying to kill Royce, Guy, actually stood in front of him and took him on the shoulder for an honor thing, basically repay the debt for what his men had done. And then the other one, I guess, was trying to kill the king, but she didn't know that. She thought they were trying to kill Royce. So then she was really good with her sling, and she threw it. And earlier in the book, she had actually gotten Royce when he was trying to get her to keep, and, like, kind of knocked him out for a little bit. But this time she flung it and she killed the guy. And then later on it was found out that he was trying to kill the king, and so she saved the king, and so she was, like, honored. And at the end it was also found out that she was pregnant, and her and Royce were so happy, and they went home, and her brother Justin was happy for them. But I've got a couple passages here, so then I'm going to read to you. So then one was after they had been, like, you know, making love. She snuggled up against her husband's side and closed her eyes. He said, Nicola. His voice was a bare whisper. Yes, she whispered back, you belong with me. So that part made me just go, and she loved it too. Like, it made her smile and so happy. And then this part, I love this too. I will play chess together after. Why would you adopt this habit? Traditions should be continued, or so my wife told me on our wedding night, when she was trying to get me to kiss her. She smiled again. Your wife now admits that was her true motive. And then I'm going to skip. Oh, admit you love me, Nicola. I would like to hear you say the words. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. She bowed her head so he wouldn't see how upset she was. I do not wish to become a burden to you. Royce went to his wife. He gathered her into his arms and held her tight. Telling me you love me will make you a burden to me, he asked. Certain he couldn't have heard correctly. Yes, he laughed then, a full, rich sound that filled the air around them. You aren't ever going to make sense to me, are you? I do love you. He hadn't realized until she gave him the words how much he really needed to hear them. It was a miracle, this precious gift. He was humbled by it. A part of him, the thoroughly logical part, couldn't understand how she could possibly love him. But she did. And he later talks about how she's one of the few women that didn't see his scar and all the hideousness. She just saw the flecks in his eyes and all that stuff that she really thought was attractive. And he felt grateful for that gift as well, because he was just crazy about her. Even his men were crazy about her. She was really awesome and very, very smart. She even beat his friend who was considered good at chess easily. She was way better than he was. She even ended up beating Royce at chess, and he didn't let her. She won fair and square. So, and he loved that about her, he even said. Then here's another one. Does that mean you'll smile even more often? Yes, God help me. Her gaze flew to his. He already helped me, she whispered. He gave me you. And that made him happy too and smile. And then there's one last one. I gotta find Baron Guy, his men that had come to keep saying, you need to come for the festivities, and the king and queen want Nicola to come too, because she's won their heart. He took one of her chess pieces and threw it in the fire, and Royce threw him out and was upset, but that's because her dad had made those pieces, and it was one of the pieces that had meant the most to her, and so he was upset for her. And so then she caught him doing this with her brother in the middle of the night in secret. Royce had a small block of wood in his hands. In the flickering candlelight, she could see the white queen on the table in front of him. Royce held the block of wood near the bottom of his left hand. He held a small knife in his other hand and was hard at work carving away slivers from the top. He would occasionally look up at the queen, then turn back to the block of wood. He was making another black queen for her. She understood then where all the cuts had come from. She understood why her husband looked so exhausted too. But most of all, she understood something else. Royce loved her. Nicola didn't move for a long while. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she watched her husband. She smiled each time he muttered an expletive, for she knew he nicked his hand again. She heard the door open and immediately moved back behind the screen. She peeked around the corner and saw Justin striding toward Royce. Her brother held a small dagger in his hand. And basically he was there to help him carve. Then later on they're talking, and then Justin said, Nicola's going to be surprised, Justin whispered. I hope she's pleased, Royce whispered back. I'm both surprised and pleased, Nicola whispered. Her brother jumped at the sound of her voice. Royce flinched. He nicked the neck of the barely formed statue. Now look what you made me do, wife, Royce grumbled. She leaned over her husband's shoulder to see the damage. She started laughing then. It was the most lopsided, ill-fashioned chess piece she'd ever seen. The head was bigger than the body, and the neck was thrice the size of the White Queen's. She loved it, especially the hole in the side of the neck. She leaned down to kiss her husband, then sat down opposite the men. You must remember that neck, husband, so you can tell our children how it happened. She suspected that Royce was embarrassed because he'd been caught doing such a sweet, tender-hearted task for his wife. Nicola felt like crying again. Dear heavens, how she loved this man. So, at first he seems gruff and rough around the edges, but later on she finds out he's really sweet and tender-hearted, and he finds out he loves her feisty and fighting and not being this perfect wife like he thought he wanted. And it's just so good. So Crafty Girl, thank you for recommending this. You were right. It's a great book, great story. I hope you all like the review. I hope you all read it. I didn't try to give everything away, just like shouldn't. If you want, you should watch her review. Hers is probably better than mine because she's read it a lot more than me. But yeah, it's super good. So I hope you guys like it. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe, hit the bell. Thanks. Bye, guys.